we are 11 weeks into the NFL season, and the Denver Broncos look like one of the best teams in all of football, which is shocking once you consider the fact that they started off their season 1-5, with the only win in that 6-week span coming against a terrible Chicago Bears team who had to blow a massive lead late in the game for them to even come back and win that. So they were this close to starting off their season 0-6, and had the Broncos started off 0-6, they are probably major sellers at the deadline and trade away a bunch of huge pieces that were vital for this 4-game win streak that they're currently on. Every Broncos fan should be thankful for the fact that this organization did not give up on Sean Payton and they didn't give up on Russell Wilson when everybody else did. Russell Wilson plays badly for 1.5 seasons, and all of a sudden, his entire career is thrown out the window. They don't even pay attention to the guy who led his team to back-to-back Super Bowls and won one of them. All of a sudden, that Russell Wilson no longer exists, and he's this shell of his former self. However, the coaches, the front office, they didn't see Russell Wilson in this way. They stuck around with him. They stuck it out through the worst. Okay, I'm not saying that Russell Wilson played great in those games, because in this losing stretch that he's had with the Broncos, he hasn't looked his best, but he also isn't this terrible player that the media makes him out to be, and he's proven this over the last couple weeks because he is a large reason for why they've gone on this 4-game win streak, and they're not beating scrubs, by no means. Some of these wins are very impressive. Hell, 3 of these teams are probably playoff teams by the end of the year, so the Broncos are beating high-level competition. And we'll take a deeper look into those impressive wins in a second, but for right now, I want to point out the fact that Sean Payton has looked phenomenal, okay? His coaching has been off the charts, and we have to remember, only a year ago, this guy was sitting on his couch at home, retired. He was basically done with football, and the only way he was coming back was if he got this, coaching opportunity from the Denver Broncos. I doubt he would have went to go coach an organization that wasn't in the position to win. He believed the Broncos were in a position to win now, which is why he came over to the organization and decided to come out of retirement. Hell, not only are Sean Payton and Russell Wilson better now, but the defense, oh my god, the defense has taken massive leaps and bounds over these past few weeks. I don't know what's gotten into them, but this is the same defense that gave up 70 points versus the Miami Dolphins in week 3. You almost forget that because of how well they're playing. But honestly, when you take a step back and look at it now, I think it makes their current success look all the more impressive. How many teams get 70 points dropped on them in one game and then go on to make the playoffs? Hell, this team could win a very stacked AFC West. That's how good they've been playing. They're only 2 games out of first place, and they're behind a Kansas City Chiefs team, which they ended up beating earlier this season. So who knows, when it comes down to a tiebreaker, the Denver Broncos might have the edge over the Kansas City Chiefs, which I know is wild to say. I can barely believe it, and it's coming out of my own mouth. But, pause, the Denver Broncos held their own versus Super Bowl favorite Patrick Mahomes. In fact, they had a very good game against Mahomes. They locked him up. Their defense is the reason they won this game. Let's keep it a buck. Patrick Mahomes would go on to throw 2 interceptions during the course of this game, and the Chiefs would fumble the ball 3 times. He has 3 fumbles with 2 interceptions. You're not going to win that game, and that's exactly what happened. Plus, the offense for the Broncos played well enough to win the game as well, because at the beginning of the game, in the first quarter, there was a 10-play drive that, across the span of 5 minutes that the Broncos had, which ended with a 4-yard pass to Javonte Williams to give the team a 7-0 lead. And then the Chiefs answer back later on in that quarter with a field goal, which is not promising at all. And then the Broncos capitalize again with an 11-yard pass to Jerry Jeudy, and all of a sudden the Broncos have a 3-14 lead. And of course, when you're playing the Chiefs, a lead like that means absolutely nothing because they can come back at any moment. However, that's not what happened. The Chiefs got stopped over and over and over again. They ended up kicking, 2 more field goals in the game, and you would think maybe the Chiefs are going to turn it around at halftime. Not what happened. Instead, the Broncos ended up sealing the game in the 4th quarter with a touchdown pass to Courtland Sutton to make the game 9-21. And with the way the Chiefs offense had been looking all night, they were not going to come back, and they didn't. They ended up losing the game 9-24, and that was the first impressive win for the Broncos. then they'd have a bye week, a week to relax, and boom, they'd be back at it against the Buffalo Bills team, who was still the Buffalo Bills at the time. Sure, they had looked shaky throughout the season, but come on, I mean, Josh Allen, this team has been good for the last few years now, and they haven't really changed too much this season, at least roster-wise. So you would think, okay, the Bills are probably going to handle business here. They didn't. Yup, they didn't, and you know why? It's because of the defense. The Broncos defense, the same one that gave up 70 points earlier in the season, I'm not letting that go. They again forced 3 fumbles, only recovered 2 of them this time, but 2 interceptions against Josh Allen with those 3 forced fumbles. Yes, you're going to win games when you cause turnovers. Another great night by the Denver Broncos defense. And Russell Wilson was manageable. He didn't have a breakout game by no means, but he played well enough to win the game. In the second quarter, the Broncos would get their first touchdown of the night. Again, a pass to Courtland Sutton. And in these past few games, Sutton has been thriving. Okay, that touchdown pass would, it'd open up the Broncos. They'd be up 9-0, which is a solid lead. But when you're playing in the NFL versus the Buffalo Bills, they can easily catch up. Of course, they would go on to score a touchdown right after that, and now the game is 9-8. And the Broncos followed that up by kicking 2 field goals, I'm pretty sure. Yes, they weren't able to capitalize, weren't able to get into the end zone again in the second quarter, so they left the game open. 15-8. Again, they're leading at halftime versus a really good team, but it's not distant. The game is still really close, and the Bills made sure to keep it that way because Latavius Murray would get a 3-yard run to tie the game 15-15. So this one is going to come down to the wire, unlike the Kansas City Chiefs game. And in the fourth quarter, this is where the offense shows up. It's the offense's turn to make plays. And then you got Javonte Williams catching a 3-yard pass from Russell Wilson to get them to a 21-15 lead. And the ending, oh my god, the ending was absolutely wild. Because the Broncos, they needed a field goal to win this game. They were down by, I want to say, 1 point. They have an attempt at the field goal. He misses. Will Lutz blows it. But the Bills have 12 men on the field, so the Broncos get another attempt. They make the second attempt, and they win the game at the buzzer. Absolutely mind-blowing. I'm pretty sure that the Bills' offensive coordinator got fired for that loss when it should have been the special teams. But you know what? The offense for the Bills hasn't looked great all season, so I understand firing him there. I mean, he keeps his job, though, if all 12 men were not on the field, if there were only 11. Unfortunately, the NFL is a cruel, cruel business at the end of the day. A business that changes on a week-to-week basis. Teams can be flipped, storylines can be changed like that, jobs can be saved, players can be looked at in a whole new light in just 1 week, which is why I think so many Americans are just drawn to the sport, because at any moment, the momentum can shift. And it has for the Denver Broncos. Hell, they came into a game versus the Minnesota Vikings, and honestly, I went into the game thinking whoever won this game was getting a video about them, and clearly, we know who won this game. This was an impressive win for the Denver Broncos, and again, it's because their defense showed out. What do? They forced turnovers. That's what this defense has done best in this win streak. 4 fumbles they forced. Of course, they only recovered 2 of them, so that's not the best ratio you want, but still, 2 turnovers from fumbles, and then Josh Dobbs would go on to throw an interception. You're going to win games when you force turnovers. It's one of the most, important things in the NFL is forcing turnovers, and that's what this defense has been able to do. But if we take a look at the scoring in this game, it was kind of boring. The offense wasn't really there for both teams until the very end. And this is why I say it was a good game for Russell Wilson, because he showed up when the lights were the brightest. Sure, he hadn't played well for most of the game, but when they needed a drive at the end of the game, he went down and he led this team 75 yards in 10 plays in 2 minutes to win this game. I mean, it ended with a 15-yard pass to Courtland Sutton. Sutton had gotten a touchdown in every impressive win so far, and of course, he's the one that Russell Wilson goes to. He obviously is Russell Wilson's favorite target, and understandably so. I wouldn't favor Jerry Jeudy if he were on my team. Shout out Steve Smith. But anyway, that's been the Broncos' stretch of impressive wins. Who knows where they take it from here? Honestly, I'm rooting for them. Hell, I want them to not only make the playoffs, but win their division, because screw the Chiefs. Anyway, that's about it for this video. Catch y'all later. Much love. Deuces.